All right. Welcome back to the Worship Keys podcast. I'm here with Ben Young today. Hey. So, Ben, how you doing, man?
Doing okay. How about you?
Doing good. And this is his dog, Henry. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see him right here at my feet. How old is he?
He's a year.
He's right out of a year. Happy birthday, Henry. Happy birthday, man. Cute little dog. What kind of dog is he? Is he some kind of doodle?
Yeah, he's a golden doodle.
Golden doodle. Yeah, he's a beautiful dog. But Ben, thank you for being on the podcast. So excited to talk to you,
man. Of course.
Man.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, we're in your studio right now here in Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And Ben and I met back at school at MTSU. Mm-hmm. So I was in grad school for recording, and he was an undergrad for recording. You played keys on a project for Megan Johnson. Mm-hmm. And man, you killed it.
Thanks, appreciate it.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, just kind of like what you do now, man. I know you're a touring musician, a studio musician, keys player, incredibly great. We're going to hear more of you playing today, but tell us a little bit about yourself, Ben.
Well, so I grew up in Alabama, not unlike you.
That's right.
And I started playing really young when I was about 4 or 5 and started taking piano lessons. And then that's kind of when I figured I have perfect pitch. I thought that's how music worked. I thought it was like colors, basically, where you just hear it and you know what it is. I mean,
right.
But then my mom would play something on the piano, and then I would go in and just play the same thing back. And then the piano teacher would assign me sheet music, but I would just listen to it online, and she would realize I wasn't even looking at the page at all. So she got to where I had to play a different piece every week, and I've never been great at sight reading.
Right.
So that's not my gift. But
and you're from Auburn, Alabama,
I
right?
am.
War Eagle, man.
War Eagle.
And it's interesting you didn't go to Auburn University, though.
Well, I could have, but there's not an incredible music scene in Auburn. It's a great town, but there's just not the same opportunities compared to somewhere like Nashville.
Absolutely.
So I felt like it was the best choice for me to go ahead and move to this area, because the best way to get involved in the industry is just to immerse yourself.
So you've been out of school since 2021, right?
Mm-hmm. That's when I graduated.
Very cool. And Ben, you've been on tour with Sidewalk Prophets, mm-hmm. which many of you may know of in the Christian world, especially in the early 2000s. They had some really great songs, still have some great songs. They still go on tour from time to time, some of the main guys there. So I know they're a good group, and you've had some fun on the road, and I know you've posted some cool stuff on your Instagram, and he's always posting fun videos, Ben is, and so you gotta check him out on Instagram, Ben Young. When you grew up learning the piano, you said you had lessons at age 5?
Started pretty young.
Wow.
5 or 6 is when I was really taking regular lessons.
Yeah.
I guess I watched a lot of Sesame Street growing up.
There you go.
One of my favorite songs as like a small kid was just the Elmo theme.
Oh, yeah.
And I had this toy xylophone, and one of the first things I ever did, evidently, was I just started playing that song on the xylophone when I was like 2 or 3.
Oh, wow. That's awesome, man. Just kind of hearing it and playing it back. So when you were 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, how did that continue to develop?
So I kind of started as a keys player, but then pretty quick I got into Guitar Hero, like a lot of kids did. And then I got to the point where I was like, well, I can play Through the Fire and Through the Flames on Expert, so I don't really know what else you even do with this game. So I was like, well, why don't I learn how to play the real guitar?
There you go.
So then I started taking guitar lessons, got really into that. Then by the time I was in 7th or 8th grade, I got in the jazz band, and I realized that jazz guitar parts are not incredibly exciting. It was just comping. So I ended up playing bass in the jazz band, and then that took me down a whole other path. From there, then I got into producing. Really, I started producing, I guess, around 3rd grade. That's when I got Sony Acid was my first program. I had the same teacher for 2nd and 3rd grade. So on the last day of school, I made her a special song. I did a cover of Iron Man going into Crazy Train.
Oh, nice.
But I changed the lyrics. It was like, I am Benjamin. Thank you for teaching me, or I would be dumb. That's what it said. And so they played it over the intercom for the entire school.
Wow. And this is 3rd grade?
This is in 3rd grade. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, I've still got that file. It's pretty wild. That's one of the first things I ever recorded. And then that's what got me into producing.
Wow.
So
man.
I would just prolifically just sit down and record.
That's amazing.
I learned piano, and then I knew guitar and knew bass.
Right.
And I was able to kind of put it all together and then start just producing.
When did you start playing in church?
I grew up Church of Christ. And that's a very interesting setting to be in with perfect pitch, because what I've noticed typically happens is, so the song, since there's no tonal center with there not being any instruments.
Right.
The song leader will start singing, and typically by the end of the service, it ends up like, a few steps flat. Like they'll start a song and it just slowly drifts down. I don't think anyone notices, but I definitely. But it's kind of hard for me to sing along because I'm always thinking in relative to the keys of the piano.
Of course.
If it's like between A flat and it's really disorienting.
Right.
I started playing at church around 2020.
Okay.
I got connected at a place in Nashville called Otter Creek. So
Awesome.
I got connected at their Brentwood campus, but right at the same time I ended up playing at the Brentwood campus, they were planning a new campus on West End.
Very nice.
So it was kind of just God's timing. I've been playing there for 4 years.
What do you play there? What kind of style of music? Do you play on Nord, real piano? What do you play there, man?
I play on a Nord, actually the same Nord I have. So it's nice. I'm already used to it, and I don't have to bring it. I just show up and play.
What style of music do you guys do there?
We do some stuff that's more CCM, some stuff that's more charismatic worship. It just depends. And then also, this church is interesting because they actually are a Church of Christ, but they've incorporated instrumental worship into their service.
Okay.
So it's kind of like a connection to my past and how I grew up, but
cool.
like a really modern version of it. So we do one service that's a cappella still, and then we do our contemporary services. I feel like music is beautiful no matter what. I can appreciate it with instruments or without instruments, but because I'm an instrumentalist, I'm better able to serve in a place where I can play.
Tell us a little bit about your college journey.
Well, I did a lot of research, and I looked at a few different schools. I auditioned for Berklee College of Music. I was really into bass guitar at the time and was thinking about being a bass major. Okay. And I also looked at Belmont University for that. But then I kind of decided, well, I don't really have to go to school to play an instrument. So I'd almost rather specialize more and focus on honing a new skill. So then that's what got me into audio production. It was a lot of the same stuff I've already been doing.
Right.
So I figured if I really sat down and kind of learned the more technical side of it and got some experience, it'd be a great way to expand my skill set. Because it has the proximity to Nashville, there's a lot of opportunity to actually get industry experience while you're going to school.
Right.
A lot of programs, I felt like you just go to school and you learn, and they have some connections there. But to me, college is not just about the education. It really is about learning how to network, learning how to teach yourself too. Even I'm still learning now. It's not like you graduate after 4 years and you just stop learning and you know everything.
Oh, exactly. Exactly, man.
So it's more about just training yourself, how to teach yourself and grow.
So tell me a little bit about your journey of learning music theory. So you were in jazz band, middle school, high school. At what point did you learn in-depth theory? When did you start learning that and implementing that into your playing?
I've always grown up listening to so much music in all different genres. I grew up listening to 80s rock, a lot of old R&B.
There you go.
A lot of old hymns. I really have a very diverse interest in different kinds of music.
That's good, man.
But with theory, it really started when I started playing live more. At first, I felt like I understood a lot of the concepts just naturally, just from like listening, but I didn't have the words to describe it. So a lot of theory, I just started watching YouTube videos, and that helped me articulate things that I would do. I understood why it felt good to go from like a 1 to a 5 chord or 1 to a 4, but I didn't understand the theoretical background of that. My guitar teacher, we talked a lot about music theory and talked about the basic concepts, and I took an AP music theory class as well.
Tell us a little bit about your journey in Nashville. So you've been out of school for 3 years now, and you began to play with different artists, and we've mentioned Sidewalk Prophets. We've mentioned Ben Fuller. You played with Ben Fuller. Tell us about your experience being on the road with Sidewalk Prophets or Ben Fuller or, other people that you've been on the road with. Tell us about that.
For me, it kind of went straight from graduating college to touring. It was a very natural transition. The way I got into touring is all through college, I've always enjoyed making Instagram videos. Over COVID, I got kind of bored just sitting around at home because I went down to Alabama for a while and wasn't in Nashville, and I wasn't gigging as much. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I was like, well, I guess I could make a bunch of videos.
Right.
And then I got into green screen editing, and I made all these covers. So the way I got into touring is I started just posting these covers and making them prolifically. And then people started seeing them, and then people started emailing me and asking, like, hey, you want to go on tour with us? I was like, okay, well, this will be some new experience.
That's awesome, man. Is that what happened with Sidewalk Prophets?
Well, with Sidewalk, I'd already had a few months of touring experience.
Okay.
So I ended up seeing an ad on Facebook that they were looking. So I just wrote an email to the manager. And it's like, this is my experience. This is my rig, and this is what I can do. Because I feel like a lot of people look into touring and they see it as almost being more about themselves. But anytime you're touring with an artist, you're there to support them.
That's
so
good.
I'm always just seeing how I can support what they need, what they're looking for.
That's a great way to look at that. So what do you suggest for someone who's wanting to get into touring as well? Would you suggest emailing as well, reaching out, or putting out their own videos as well?
I think just doing a combination. So when you send out an email, what's going to happen is they're going to just look and kind of try to hear some of your stuff. And one of the easiest ways to do that now is just TikTok and Instagram, just having a presence on there. You don't have to, but there's a value to it if you do.
Absolutely. Talk about once you've gotten the gig and you're going out for touring or you're doing some rehearsals, some tips for people.
It's very helpful if you can just learn the music as deeply as possible. What I do is I like to make a Logic session, and I just take all the songs and I put them back to back, and I essentially construct the set in a way that you can listen to it. Because it helps you memorize it if you can just hear it like it's the set.
Right.
And so I'll set up markers, and I'll have all the songs, and then I'll go through, and then I'll listen to the original record, and then I'll listen to any past live recordings. If there's someone before you, there's some stuff that they liked about what they did, and there's some stuff that they didn't. Right. So if you just ask, you can kind of get a sense of what they're looking for and what they like, and then you also put some of what you like too.
I want to take a moment to talk a little bit more about playing by ear and the whole idea of perfect pitch versus relative pitch.
Mm-hmm. So relative pitch is something that a lot of musicians have, and it's something that can also be developed. But what it is if you hear middle C and then hear another note, you can tell what the interval is. And it's all based on like a difference between intervals.
That's good.
But with perfect pitch, you could play middle C, or you could play A3, or you could play anything else, or even chords. And there's also degrees of perfect pitch. And it's another thing that can be developed. As you gain knowledge in music theory and practice, it gets more advanced.
I think when you can sing the pitch as well, you can see how it feels in your throat. Mm-hmm. Have you ever done that too? Or
yes, you can. And some singers are really good at that, and they're just used to their muscle memory. And that can be a way that they can then reference for relative pitch.
Right.
But with perfect pitch, if you truly have it, you don't have to sing. It's like a color. The thing is, black and white film is beautiful, and there's a lot you can do with that. And it's not that I'm superior.
Right.
Like a lot of people act like perfect pitch means that like I'm better at music than other people. It's a God-given gift for sure, so I have to give all credit to him.
Amen.
But it's just the way my mind works, and in some ways it can be confusing. If a piano's a little out of tune, or if I'm playing with a singer that's drifting, it can be disorienting.
Right.
And there's some circumstances where it might be easier to play without perfect pitch. It's definitely saved me in a lot of situations, but there's also times where it's hard to turn off. So if I'm playing with a guitarist that their guitar is a little out of tune, it can sometimes be confusing for me to play with them. And I almost want to detune my piano too, but that's kind of hard to do. So you just kind of end up playing.
Right.
But that's why it's important to tune your guitar.
Well, we're going to take a moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn over here to your Nord, which is, what's it? Nord Stage 3 over here.
Stage 3.
So, and I'm going to play a few notes. I'm going to play some intervals. I'm going to play some chords and progressions. And we're just going to test Ben out over here on his perfect pitch and just see how you do, man. Again, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see this visually. But if you're listening on the podcast, you can just listen on in and see how Ben does. So it's really cool just to see someone with perfect pitch and someone who can play by ear just in real time of how valuable that can be. And just talk a little bit too before we do that. But talk a little bit about how you prepare for Sunday mornings, like because of the ear that you have, how does that affect when you're preparing for even just a worship service?
The one thing with perfect pitch is when I listen to a song, usually when you're playing it in church, you shift the key for the vocalist.
Right.
So I'd say one challenge is whenever it's in a different key, it can be disorienting and sound like a different song sometimes. So I have to kind of get myself used to whatever new key we're going to be playing it in, and that helps me feel more grounded in it. There's some apps you can use. There's a Chrome extension I have where you can transpose audio.
Well, cool. Well, let's get down to it. All right, Ben. So I am turned to the Nord over here now. We're just going to play a few notes and just see Ben do his thing, man. I first just play some single notes, and you tell us what it is, man. Are you ready?
Okay.
Here we go.
F sharp.
Oh, my goodness. All right, here we go.
A.
Wow, correct. Yeah.
A flat. C.
Wow. You got that quick. Okay.
Middle C is pretty fast usually.
Right.
D.
Wow.
E.
Wow.
G.
Okay, so tell me what you're. So when I go to the lowest octaves or highest octaves, do you just make it relative to middle C, or how do you do that?
Well, that's the difference. So I don't even think about middle C. I'm thinking about the note kind of in its own plane.
Wow. Okay, that's incredible. All right, let's keep going.
B flat.
Yes.
E flat. C. A. G.
My goodness, bro.
It's one of those things too. Like it kind of you have to wake up your mind to it a little bit.
Wow.
Once you kind of start doing it, you get a little faster.
That's amazing.
People have asked me to teach it to them before, but it's just a God-given thing. It's
Right.
the way your brain works.
That is so neat.
It's
Okay.
also some birds do it. So some animal. We're not
Wow.
the only creatures that can do it. There's a lot of like the parrot type birds can do it
Mm-hmm.
because they can mimic back, and part of that is not as a recognition of the pitch. And
Wow.
also people that speak tonal languages are more likely to be able to do it.
Dude, that's neat. Okay, man, let's start doing intervals, right?
Okay.
So it could either be major third, minor third, second, fourth, sixth, seventh. You ready?
Okay. So that's a major third, so G and B.
Yes. All right.
That's a minor, so
Yeah.
F sharp and A.
Wow.
That's a fourth, so D flat and G flat.
Wow, man.
A and E, so fifth.
Wow.
That's major sixth, so that's B flat and G flat.
Wow. Yes. I'm not going to keep going with this because that's incredible, man. That's really great. Okay, dude. So let's start doing some chords. Are you
Okay.
ready?
That's a G, A, and D, so
Wow.
that's like a sus2.
Yes. And I didn't even have to do that one note at a time. I was going to do it one note at a time when you need it, but
If it gets really dense, then sometimes that's helpful, but
yeah.
that's like a bread and butter chord, especially
Right.
playing worship.
Yes, absolutely. How about
That's like an A minor 9.
yes? Perfect, man. Okay, what about
That's F sharp minor.
minor and what number after?
Oh, that'd be a minor 7, yeah.
Yes, sir. Okay. What about
That's a major 9 in B flat.
yes? Beautiful. Okay. How about this?
That's a D flat minor 7. Oh, that's a D minor. Yeah, D minor 7.
Yes. Yeah. D
But
minor.
it's got the 9 too, so it's like a
Yes.
7 and 9.
Yes. Okay. Very cool. Very, very cool. I was like, I wasn't gonna say no at first. I was gonna let you think about that. Okay.
That's a G. It's like a 13, like a dominant.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
C major 7.
Yep. Cool. What about
That's like an A flat. It's got the G. It's got the F. So it'd be like a 6 and a 7. But then it's got the flat 5 as well.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, you're good, man. I was just gonna try that chord for fun, just to see what you'd say. I'm gonna start doing full progressions now,
Okay.
and they're just gonna be 4-bar progressions that repeats, not an 8-bar, 12-bar, but just normal four chord progression. So here we go, standard progression right here.
So it's an A minor going to an F major, going into 1/3, going into the 5. So it's like 6. Yeah, 6, 4, 3, 5.
Nice, bro. Yes, sir.
All in C major.
Okay. What about this one? Repeat again.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, there's an E flat minor going into. I forgot this. I remember the. Play it one more time.
Yeah. What key are we in?
Okay, it's in G flat.
It's not in G flat.
Okay. Oh, that's not the root. Okay.
Right.
It would be. Oh, it would be. Well, yeah. So, is it rooted in that minor? So is it the? It's not E flat minor.
Nope.
Oh, okay. So it's D flat. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So
the chords that you were playing E flat minor, then B flat minor, then A flat.
Yeah, it's a little confusing because I never played the 1 or the 4 the first time, so it's harder because you're like, where is the landing point?
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, you don't always have to for it to be in that key.
Right.
But that is the harder ones to hear.
Great job though. Let's keep going. This is gonna be more than 4 chords.
Mm-hmm.
But really, there's gonna be a landing point for a few, but. What'd you hear, man?
There was a lot of chords.
What key we start in?
Well, you started in playing a different thing. You were playing the same progression in G, but then you started playing it in C towards the end. So
Yeah.
that's just the typical kind of walking down. It's going from the 1, then you're playing the kind of a diminished to go into the minor 6th.
Yeah.
And then you're doing a chromatic. You're taking the minor down a half step, down, then to a whole step.
Yeah.
Then to the C dominant.
Yeah.
Then F major.
Yep.
1/3. Minor 2.
Yeah. Very nice. So it's
C, G sus, so sus 5.
walking it down. And then what's this chord?
That'd be. It's kind of like it's like E. It's like an E major chord, but like first inversion.
Yeah.
But with the 7.
Yes. An A minor. And then what's this next chord?
It's the same chord. You're doing like a minor like voicing, but you're taking it down chromatically. So it's just like a passing chord. It's like A minor 9, A 7.
So it starts on A minor and it walks down to. Excuse me. What's that chord?
That's a G minor.
Yeah. 7. Yes, sir. Very great, man. Very great. Utilizing the secondary dominance, and it's really great. Too easy, right? Too easy, bro. I don't know if I could get too many other progressions that would trip you up unless you ones that change keys or borrow keys from one or the other. But those are your typical worship type stuff, and even that last one more gospel-y, transition chords. Again, you don't see me playing. I mean, you're facing the other way, but that's incredible. Not only do you know the progression, but you know what key you're in. Man, love that, bro. You've been crazy good ear. Crazy good ear.
Well, it's almost easier if I'm playing.
Right,
I can
right.
play it quicker than I can describe it.
Yes. So what's your favorite progressions? Like, what are your favorite things to play?
Oh, man. There's so many of them. They're all different.
Yeah.
I think you just kind of find different ideas. So all these progressions are just based on different combinations of things that feel good, basically.
Yeah.
And also, I like to think of not just chord progressions, but rhythmic progressions as well. So there's a whole other side to it. It's kind of like learning ingredients, and then you're the chef, and you can kind of choose when to throw cardamom or cinnamon or whatever you're doing.
That's good. And your brother cooks, right?
He does.
And y'all are getting ready to release a brand new salsa?
We're called Smiling Salt Salsa. You can find us on Instagram and our website, but we're going to be a Kiwi Verde salsa.
Is it released yet? Can people buy it?
Not yet, but
Not yet.
very soon.
It's coming soon.
We're working on it.
It will be this summer.
It should be.
Okay. By the time you hear this podcast, it might be released. So check the show notes, check the description. We'll link it. Get some good salsa going. Now, not salsa as in the genre of music.
No, not salsa music, but actual salsa.
Yeah. Can you play? Make a little jingle for it. It's great, bro. It's great. Okay. Yeah, that's a great analogy. No, it's just like tools to use for music.
And the more you do it, the more you immerse yourself in it, and the more you listen, you can kind of pick on that stuff. So you learn music theory, but then the best way to learn music theory is just to listen to music and then see how it's practically used.
So for the worship genre, you hit on this just a minute ago when we were kind of listening down. On sus2, sus4 chords, I love those chords. It's just like the bread and butter.
Oh, yeah.
Right, of music. And why is that, man? Why is that, you think, for worship music?
So I think a lot of times people play chords where their 3 is really emphasized.
Right.
But there's a lot of times where that's too strong. And especially in a lot of worship progressions, the point is for it not to be totally resolved. Like I might play with a third at like the very end of a service, especially so a lot of times I'll be accompanying a benediction and I'll be following our pastor.
Right.
And
Ben on the benediction.
Ben on the benediction. But yeah, that's when I want things to really wrap up. I try to kind of listen in time where I hit on the one really with a strong root right when the service is wrapping up.
You don't ever end on a 4?
You could, but that'd be a little... I mean, I guess that's,
until next week. No.
I mean, that's probably more accurate to the way the world works, but that would probably throw some people off or feel kind of funky. But when you play open sus2 or sus4, it just kind of has this feeling of almost comfort, and it leaves room so that sometimes if you're playing that kind of chord, the singer may be on the third.
Right.
And it really, in worship, it's really about the vocals. So
absolutely.
It just feels better to leave the space for them.
If you want more information on accompanying vocals, you can check out episode number 8 with Nate Birch on the keys. But yeah, that's so important, especially with worship.
And also, a lot of people don't think about this, but if you're not playing the third, that means you have more room to play extensions, and they won't sound as dissonant or busy.
Yeah, like playing the C and just like a standard C, but like instead of playing it. And then, invert it a little bit next time. And the extension's the major 7 on the 4, Beautiful for worship.
Yes,
you
and
know?
a lot of not playing the third is just a voice leading thing too.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because if you're playing the third, that's a farther reach to have those smooth transitions.
Right.
And if you're playing the sus2, it's all right there. You can just kind of glide from one chord to another
Absolutely,
and
man.
make it all sound cohesive.
So you talked about being a bass player. Do you have any like pet peeves with bass players when you're playing with them? Like I know we talked about guitarists not being in tune, and that's definitely one thing. And we have the luxury as a keyboard player to pretty much always being tuned. But do you have any pet peeves with bass players as you're playing with them?
So it's great when you're playing with a bass player to be on the same page on what inversions you're going to do.
Yeah.
Because I try to stay out of the bottom end for the most part. I like to
Right.
let them. But also, it can sound great in certain songs and context if I am playing the left-hand bass notes with them. If we land on something like the 1/3 or 1/5 and I'm playing the low end under and we're all lined up, that sounds great. But what doesn't sound great is if I'm trying to play 1/3 and then they're just playing the one chord. I try to really coordinate in rehearsal where we're going to do the inversions and where we're not. That way we can just make things sound as intentional as possible.
I appreciate you talking about perfect pitch and relative pitch and how you can use your ear to better target certain notes and progressions. I think it's very helpful when you're listening to worship, brand new worship music, when you're listening on the fly. Like I think that skill is incredible because if you're in a more flowing type environment within a church, someone starts singing, you need to be able to back them up with no reference point, right?
And you don't have to have perfect pitch to do that.
For sure.
If you can figure out what the first note is and then you have good relative pitch, then you can do the same thing.
Absolutely. And good for jam sessions, right? People
Oh, yeah.
start playing, you start playing with them, it's fun.
And I'm very much that way. I struggle when it's a situation where I have to play this part the same way every time.
Right.
I almost always play it a different way because I'm always trying to improve it and I'm always trying to find ways to add a new voicing or add a new rhythmic fill.
Right.
But not even in ways that are really busy. A lot of times it's a very subtle thing. I might just hold like one of my fingers a little lighter next time I play a certain chord because I don't want to emphasize the top note as much.
What's your favorite run to do in a worship service?
Let's see. I'm trying
And do
to
you
think
want
of-
to come on to this piano?
I could.
Okay. So we switched spots. Now you're at the Nord.
Okay, we
song?
did. You know this song?
Yeah, yeah. As we pray, I need a fresh wind. The gates of heaven, pour your spirit out. Pour your spirit out. Yes. Allow the anointing. The pour your spirit out. Pour your spirit out. That's a good one. Yeah.
So a lot of times in worship services, I like to. There's a little bit of space. It's nice for outros to just play the melody
Yes.
and know the melody well. That's key in all of these arrangements. But a lot of times I'll kind of do my own little piano arrangement at the end, kind of just to wrap it up. Or one of my favorite things too is just like letting things kind of go out of time and cutting off the tracks and cutting the clicks and just backing up a singer and letting the church really sing out. I feel like those moments are always more raw and emotional.
Thanks for sharing, bro. What advice do you have to anyone learning keys right now? You were learning at 6, 7, 8, whether they're 20 years old, 10 years old, 50 years old, like someone who's learning keys for the first time, they have a good ear, they have relative pitch or perfect pitch, and they're really getting into piano specifically. What would you say for them, man?
Just listen to a lot of music and listen to different genres. Listen to stuff that connects with you and you enjoy. Because there's always something to learn from it. And listen to stuff other than just piano players, too. I guess for me, since I play more than just keys, I spend a lot of time listening to guitarists. I play lap steel, too, so a lot of lap steel, pedal steel players. And I'll get a lot of ideas for keys from the way they play. So just keep your mind open. A lot of great singers. I mean, that's really that's one of the best ways to learn melodic ideas. Singers do a really good job of playing with the expression and just kind of singing from the heart and really having emotion to it. So there's different things you can learn from different instruments. So don't limit yourself to just listening to piano players. Although listen to lots of piano too, because that's a great way to learn.
I love that, Ben. Thank you, man. Well, dude, we're going to hop on over to your organ and get you just to talk a little bit about it, play a little bit. I really love your instrument over here. I think it's like really unique. I haven't seen anyone with this particular version of the organ over here. So we're going to show that here on YouTube, and also we'll let you hear it on the podcast as well. All right, Ben. So now you're at your Hammond. Now explain exactly what kind of organ that you're playing on, man.
So this is called the Hammond XK5. It's one of the newer models they've come out with, and it takes a lot of the just newest technology and emulating the old organs. So it basically gives you all the fun of having an old organ, but without all the maintenance. So it has a tube in it, and it's got contacts in it, but the difference is instead of having the analog component of generating the tone bars and tone wheels, it does that part digitally. And that just makes it a lot more reliable and a lot lighter. So for touring, it's much easier to just take around with me, and it sounds great.
Right. It looks beautiful, too. It looks realistic.
Thanks. So it feels really good. And one thing that real organs do is when you press the note down slowly, you'll hear the contacts come in one at a time. So that's one of the top ones. And then that's the big one. So it sounds like a really subtle thing, but when you're playing really choppy stuff, it makes the difference.
Woo! Yes. So what? That's awesome, man. What did you use this on the tour with Sidewalk? Sidewalk Prophet. What songs did you play this on with Sidewalk?
I mean, I played on almost all of them. I mean, it depends. It's great. The typical thing I do a lot of times is I'll play like piano on the verse, and then I'll play organ on the chorus, and then the final chorus I might be doing piano and organ, because I have it set up live where also I have a top board running to the piano, so then I can be playing left-hand piano plus right-hand organ.
Fun.
So just any of the big hits, things like that are great.
Well, play a little bit around with that thing. Show us your best tones and what you like to do with this best, man.
So I like to start with just the third drawbar pulled out. It's a real mellow sound, and it's great for pads. So yeah, it's just a nice kind of bread and butter. Yeah. And then I might start to add in a little bit of the drawbar. So like that was just the top drawbar is at like a high harmonic, which sounds really nice. So and then I might add the bottom octave if I want it to sound a little more fuller. So that's kind of just a bigger pad sound. And then I'll take it back down. If I start doing both manuals, I'll take it back to the simple, and I'll use this to do some left-hand comping. And then I'll have this on a kind of a brighter sound for melodies. So for something like In Christ Alone, I could do... And you can move the drawbars. That's the fun thing about having the real ones here. So you can kind of get this kind of almost like a wah pedal effect.
Nice. Man, that's great, dude. Now, do you play this at church or do you just play key, like standard piano?
It depends. I haven't, but I've been actually wanting to. I think it'd be really fun to incorporate, especially if there's a few guys at our church who do play piano. So we've been talking about for some Sundays having a week where I don't play piano and one of them plays piano and then I play organ or also maybe even banjo. We've been talking about doing banjo. Would be fun.
Nice, man. That's cool. So talk about, I know that's just a little bit of textures we got. You could probably say 10 different things about tone and texture here, but I want you to talk a little bit about what you're doing with your foot because you don't have the standard Leslie switch to your left. So tell us what you're doing with your foot down there.
So I have a pedal. It's called the Neo Ventilator 2, and it lets me control the Leslie.
If you're on YouTube, I'm going to show you a visual of it here in just a second. Keep going though, Ben.
But it's basically it's another thing that you can use a big Leslie, and I actually have a foot switch for my big Leslie too. But this is just a pedal that has the sound of a Leslie, and you can run it direct, and I can just control it with my feet. So with my right foot, I have it on a volume pedal, and then on my left foot, I'm controlling the Leslie speed, and then I'm using both hands to play. So it's one of those things that takes a lot of interdependent coordination to play. It doesn't come with it. It's a separate thing you have to get, but you can also use it with a real organ or even use it with things besides organ. It sounds great on electric piano, and even through some synths is really fun. The sound of the organ comes mostly from the Leslie. It's just nice to have your hands free, and I can use the switch too, but if I'm holding down a chord, it's nice not, especially because organ doesn't have a sustain pedal, so when I take my hand off, it's going to stop playing. So if I can just have one to give myself a little more control. Most of the time, you're just kind of going back and forth from fast to slow, and it just adds a nice kind of motion and movement to everything. You just run a quarter inch into it. So, I mean, you can run synth into it. You can run a guitar. It's an expensive pedal, but it's amazing at what it does.
So tell us what you had before this organ, though, or you still have it, but what did you have before this one?
Before I had it, I would just use Nord organ section, and actually running a Nord through this Neo ventilator makes even the Nord organ section sound a lot better. It doesn't have the contact sensitivity and the same tonal flexibility, and because I mean with this one I can go in and dial the sound specifically of a B3 or of an A3 or A100 or of a C3, and it just lets you kind of hear the subtle differences in each one.
Can you go through that with us right here? Because oftentimes we don't have the luxury of going through the different tones together. If you can kind of go through each one of those and tell us what we're hearing, that'd be great.
Yeah, so it's going to be a very subtle thing. So here's the B3. This is a C3. It's a little darker. And then this is the A100. It's got a little bit more distortion. You can hear it saturate a little more in the low end.
That's awesome. Now, you obviously got some reverb on that thing, too. Is that from the pedal or from the organ?
No, I run it from the organ, and I like to have the reverb come out of the organ and go through the Leslie.
Okay.
There's something nice about hearing the reverb trails also get affected by the Leslie speed.
Thanks for doing that. Do you want to play a little bit together? And play one of my favorite songs. beautiful, man. That sounds so good, dude. And I love the slides. Well, Ben, it has been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Of course,
man.
thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, and enjoyed playing with you. A little duet there on the piano, organ. Really enjoyed hearing what you had to say. One last question: what is your future goal with your music career, and what would you like to do here in the near future?
So I just love backing up artists and playing with bands. So I just love to continue touring, continue writing music, continue recording in sessions, and just continuing finding ways of being creative. It's just about doing what God made me to do.
Absolutely, Ben. Tell us how we can find you on Instagram, TikTok, email address, whatever you want to share, man. We'll follow you.
So on Instagram and TikTok, you can find me at Young Ben Music. So I post lots of videos on there, just doing covers, all different things, some worship, some pop.
It's really fun.
And
it's really entertaining.
I do a lot of stuff with my dog. I'll throw him on my back, and then I'll play something. I'll do like some talk box, some stuff, just all kinds of stuff.
You've brought Henry to concerts with you.
I do. If you really want to find a unique way to get some gigs, I've gotten a lot of gigs just by bringing Henry with me. He's way cooler than me. And so when I bring him with me, I'm going to naturally meet people. And that's an important part of if you're trying to be a professional musician, just like getting out there and kind of supporting other musicians, like supporting my friends. I'll go to their shows a lot, and I'll bring Henry with me, and we'll meet people. And, you just give to people, and they'll give back to you. So it's just good to go to shows and reach out to people, write emails, and just put yourself out there.
Absolutely.
Nothing's going to happen if you never put yourself out there and people can't find you. So
that's right, Ben. If you guys have any sessions where you need a keys player, contact Ben. You got his Instagram info, you got his TikTok information. Just private message him. He will definitely do some remote recordings for you. He could potentially go on tour with you if you're an artist, or would love to come maybe even visit your church and help you guys out as well with certain services. But feel free to connect with Ben, and I know Ben would be more than happy to talk with you. So thanks again, Ben, and thank you guys so much for listening. Thanks for subscribing and liking and following along, and we'll see you guys next episode.